Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting of the Sacramento City Housing Authority and the Sacramento City Council will please come to order. Would the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Thank you. Councilmember Kaplan. Here. Councilmember Laloe. Here. Councilmember Talamontes. Here. Councilmember Valenzuela.
Here.
Councilmember Maple.
Here.
Vice Mayor Guerra. Here. Councilmember Jennings. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Bang.
I am here.
And Mayor Steinberg.
I am here. Councilmember Laloe? Yes. Would you consider leading us, please, again, I think, in the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance?
It will be my pleasure. Please rise for the opening acknowledgement in honor of Sacramento's indigenous people and tribal lands. To the original people of this land, the Niasans people, the Southern Madu, Valley and Plain Miwok, Patwin Wintun peoples, and the people of Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation of Sacramento's indigenous people's history, contribution, and lives. Thank you. Please, I'm sorry. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How come I got two?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the monthly meeting of the Housing Authority. Our executive director of our Housing Authority, Lachelle Dozier, is with us here on the dais, and we have a consent calendar, we have a discussion calendar, and we have any other comments relating to housing and the Housing Authority not on the agenda. Ms. Dozier, anything you want to say to kick us off before we get right to the consent calendar? No. We sure do. Well, then let's get right to it. We do have a consent calendar, and it is one item. So,
No, you go ahead.
Move approval, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
moved and second, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Maple. Is there public testimony?
I have no hands raised to make comment on this item.
Let's go fast. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. That passes 9-0. All right, we do go to the meat of the agenda, so to speak, the discussion calendar, which is all about the partnership we have formed with the state of California around homeless assistance and prevention, otherwise known as HAP. So, Sarah, hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
This is my first time in 2023, so nice to see
Well,
everybody.
Welcome to you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Housing Authority Board. My name is Sarah Daniel, and I'm with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. And we are here today to request the allocation of $6.8 million of state homeless housing assistance and prevention Phase 3 funds, or HAP 3 for short. These funds are for the continued operations of the Emergency Bridge Housing at Grove Avenue, or EBH for short, and Meadowview Shelter. As background, on April 28th of 2020, SHRA staff was approved to oversee the operations of a tiny home initiative in Council District 2, specifically to house 24 transitional age youth, or TAY, between the ages of 18 and 24 in cabins on Grove Avenue, which is adjacent to St. Paul's Church of God and Christ. The goal was to stabilize the youth, link them to services, job training, and employment, with the ultimate goal of housing them in the community and preventing the youth from becoming part of the chronic homeless population here in Sacramento. The cabins were built with heating and air conditioning. Community and office space was provided, in addition to bathrooms and shower facilities for the youth. 3 meals are available to them each day, in addition to laundry service being available. Cameras are placed throughout the exterior of the property with staff on site 24 hours a day. First Step Communities is the on-site operator, and a low-barrier, youth-centric coordinated entry process was developed with Sacramento Steps Forward and many youth partners. Cabins were open to the youth in June of 2020, and this program is very successful despite being launched and operated during the heart of the pandemic. From June 2020 to January 2023, 320 guests were sheltered. 154 of the guests arrived or gained employment during their time at the site. Places they worked at include Chili's, Harbor Freight Tools, Subway, FedEx, Chick-fil-A. I do love Chick-fil-A. And 155 guests are stabilized in housing. In fall of 2022, the adjacent land next to the 24 cabins became available on the church's property. With the pastor's approval, an additional 26 additional cabins were built, and now we have a total of 50 cabins at the site. Staff purchased the same amenities as in the first phase, including community space, office space, bathroom, and shower trailers. Both sides are connected to each other, and there is one entryway to control access to the site. Now there are 50 youth off the streets instead of 24. 2 years of operating this initiative is completed, and city staff applied for HAP 3, Phase 3 funds for continued operations. And we are requesting the allocation of $3.26 million of state HAP 3 funds for the continued operations of EBH for 1 year, from May 2023 to April of 2024. In addition to EBH, the city also requested SHRA to oversee the administration of the Meadowview Women's Navigation Center in October of 2020. We were busy that year. The city received $6 million of HAP funds to operate this center for 2 years. City Public Works took the lead to oversee the construction of the Sprung Shelter site on Meadowview Road in Council District 8, and the shelter opened on October 1st of 2020 to 100 homeless women, again, right in the middle of the pandemic. The campus includes 2 sprung structures, one for dining and the other for the dormitory, open shade structures, accompanying restrooms, showers, and space for client-centric supportive services. 3 daily meals are provided, and kennels are available for a limited number of pets. Here you can see the bathroom and the showers, the beds and the computer, and the dining room. The goal is to understand the barriers of the women that they have to get into housing, link them to income resources as necessary, stabilize the women with services, and help them find suitable, stable housing. Services at both EBH and Meadowview include credit counseling, rent readiness, emotional support, mental health assistance, crisis management, employment coaching, housing search, Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous anger management, positive personal development, being a good tenant, and the list goes on and on. But really, comprehensive services to help our guests. The Meadowview Shelter operates from a housing-first, low-barrier approach to provide services and housing support. Priority to the center is given to women living in the Meadowview surrounding area. Volunteers of America, or VOA, operates this shelter, and they have also partnered with the Downtown Streets team, who works with volunteer guests from the center to clean up around the area while providing them with basic employment and life skills. In 2022, the volunteers, with the assistance of Downtown Streets team, removed 6,800 gallons of debris from the surrounding area, which is a lot. There are no lines outside this shelter or EBH, as entry is through a coordinated access system that is operated by Sacramento Steps Forward. Rehousing efforts begin upon entry with the goal to successfully transition the guests into housing within 6 to 12 months. 2 years of operations is complete, and despite the pandemic, From October 2020 to January 2023, 738 guests were sheltered. 97 of the guests came in or gained employment while at the shelter, and 193 women were housed. The city has received HAP Phase 3 funds for 1 year of operations, continued operations, and we are requesting the allocation of $3.5 million for the continued operations of Meadowview from May 2023 to April 2024. I wanted to end this section of the presentation with a quote from a shelter guest. We asked, "What does home mean to you?" "Home to me is security. Like when you go to your mom's, it may not be my residence, but it creates a feeling of home. Meadowview has given me that." So if you are interested in reading updated information on the shelters, please go to our website to www.shra.org, where we provide weekly and monthly reports on the shelters. At the council meeting on December 13th, when we were here, there was a discussion on the vaccination status of the guests at the city shelters. I have provided data here as of January 2023 on guests at the 3 shelters that we oversee. So this is data that's just a point in time. Looking at the data, there are guests who are vaccinated, but there are many that aren't, or refuse to answer the question during the intake process. We see the shelters as low-barrier housing that provides an opportunity to bring the homeless off the streets, stabilize them, and while they are on the property, we encourage them to get the vaccination. In fact, the Elica mobile unit comes once a week to Meadowview, so it makes it easy to get the guests vaccinated if they choose to do so. In addition, we follow the County Department of Public Health guidelines, and they have stopped the lockdown mandate to ensure that we continue with the low-barrier approach to bring the homeless into the shelter. And they really are relying on the shelters to come up with their protocol to isolate the individuals on site, in pallet homes, or on their property, or to work with the city and Sacramento Steps Forward to isolate the guests at a motel. This concludes my presentation, and we do have staff here from VOA and First Steps.
It was excellent. Thank you so much. It's really something. I know I want to comment in a minute, but I want to hear from the public and my colleagues first.
I have one hand raised to make public comment. Call in user 1. Would this be Mr. Davis?
Hello, yes, this is Lambert Davis, and I'm listening to this as I'm studying what's going on at City Hall. And again, the SHRA, Michelle Dosher, and the person who just gave us this report, that's very thorough. That impresses a person like me that it's very thorough. As you look at it on the agenda, it doesn't talk too much about, it says Sean Laloli, but it doesn't say what you're doing in District 2, and you just did. And so that was good, but it was left out in the agenda. It spoke more about Meadowview. Shout out to Meadowview, because I have friends out there too. But that's a very good report, and it doesn't surprise me when Rochelle Dosher's involved, because he brings it to the table where you can understand it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Let's turn it now over to the dais here, my colleagues, and start with Vice Mayor Eric Guetta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all of Michelle Dozier and all of the SHRA team here for bringing this forward. My big gratitude goes to a lot of the folks working day to day in both of these with the beginning of the Meadowview shelter. This was a controversial one where, if I remember, I mean, this.
I remember.
I think there was only 3 of us here at the time, and but it has proven how providing someone access to respite and the fears that were concerned were brought up, have led to something positive. And I've had a chance to, through the different other support organizations have been able to interact with some of the folks who've been able to come out of these. And these are two different approaches, the congregate shelter and also the individual room shelter. We've learned a lot along this process. And I think that's the important part, is that we've tried different things. There are some who would question that nothing has been done, but what we have learned is which situations work, which ways are unique, and if there's anything that's come of this, is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, because folks who are looking for support have different needs. And in both of these circumstances, I feel that the biggest challenge that's highlighted is just the unfortunate number of actual beds that we do have available. And in both of these situations, it was difficult to find land, and that city property was something that we had access to. But if it wasn't for the church property, we wouldn't even have that one. And we continue to have that challenge now that we've got a great partnership with the county. We've got the services. We still continue to have challenges for more access and more space to be able to use the tools that we've identified over the last 4 years, actually, in this. So all to say is it's been a journey, but there's been a lot of success in keeping people from coming back into the situation that they were in. And that's the goal here with these. It's not just to pull people out immediately, but to prevent them entering back into homelessness. And they give them an opportunity for a future. So all to say is thank you. Both of these are not in my council district. I was proud to vote for both of these entities. So before I take a motion on I won't make a motion here. I'll leave it to the council members in those areas to do so. But to say that I lend my support for the success that has occurred, and more importantly, what we've learned along the way. Taking risk to make a choice of leadership to do something versus not to do anything, and falling back on the fears that most folks have in addressing this issue. So more to come. I feel optimistic about the future. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the SHRA team.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Vang.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Sarah for the thorough presentation. I want to thank the SHRA team and just Lachelle for her incredible, fierce leadership. I have some comments and some questions. I'm happy to support this, but just did have some follow-up question. My understanding, and I just want to share this, I know that the prior council voted to pass to have the Meadowview Navigation Center in my district, and I was actually a proponent of it. I was a big supporter of it, and my understanding is that originally when we started this, it was a 2-year program from October 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2022. Obviously, we have surpassed that date, and a big reason why we have the shelter open now is because we know that the need is incredibly dire, and there are many unhoused women living on the street now. We need to make sure that we have low-barrier, short-term shelters, in addition to our long-term housing solution that I know this council supports. And so I do just want to take this moment to thank previous council and this council for your continued support for the Meadowview Navigation Center since its inception and opening. I've had an opportunity to see the site multiple times. I see many of the unhoused women from the Downtown Streets team on Mondays during my walk with our seniors, and I know that the shelter in particular has transformed many lives. But I also am cognizant that most of the funding for the Meadowview Navigation Center and even for the emergency bridge housing is one-time funding. And I've had a lot of questions just from community members about, we made a commitment that we were just going to be open 2 years. We're still open now. How are you able to keep funding this shelter? And I think it's important to be able to also share that with the public. And so just wanted to ask you, Lachelle and Sarah as well, because I know that a combination of our homeless services, our Safe Ground, and our shelters are both funded by state grants and sometimes city funding as well, which this council has most of the time have approved. Wanted to know for those shelters that's operated under SHRA, is it a combination of state funding along with city? What's the combination, the mix in funding for that?
So for emergency bridge housing and for Meadowview, it has been, 100% of the state HAP funds. And then we supplemented it with some one-time federal emergency solution grant funds that made it to today, and so until we get the HAP 3 funds. And then the third shelter that we operate or administer is X Street, and that there wasn't enough HAP Fund 1 funds, so we also received a $5 million Kaiser Foundation grant from the mayor that helped with X Street and also supplemented with some other one-time federal dollars.
Thanks, Sarah. So with the HAP funding that's coming in, my understanding is the start date is May 2023. Curious to know, Lachelle, do we have a date set on when the end date is for this funding and when it needs to be utilized by?
Yes, so we will be utilizing it within 1 year. But the HAP 3 funds, they all have to be contracted or contractually obligated by May 31st of 2024, and 100% of the funds have to be expended by June of 2026.
Of June 2026, okay. And then my last question is for Ms. Dozier, but it might just also be for city staff as well. Last December, this council signed a historic agreement, partnership agreement with the county to ensure that we have behavioral health services from the county in terms of expansion of our services. And so as we're renewing funding or approving this HAP fund, I want to have a better understanding of how our MOU that we agreed on actually looks like on the ground. And so several questions. One is, would like to know what role does SHRA play, well, like what is SHRA's role in the MOU partnership? That's the first question. And then the second question is, what role does the partnership, our MOU, currently have on our current shelters? I love to have a better understanding of how many assigned county behavioral health specialists we have in our current shelters. I'm not sure what the process is. I don't know if the shelter has to request the county to provide those services, but would like to have a better understanding. I don't know if that might be an SHRA question, might be directed to Mario. I see the mayor's not here as well, but so.
I was gonna have both Lachelle respond and then have Mario come up as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I can take the first question in terms of SHRA's role in the partnership agreement, and this is the partnership agreement between the city and the county, and there is a requirement that within 180 days of execution that we would come forward with a affordable housing plan. So SHRA is leading the effort in terms of putting together that plan. We're working very closely with the city staff, with the county staff, and ourselves as well to come forward, and you will be seeing probably drafts as well as the final around June and July of this year. So we're working very, very hard to make sure that we deliver that based on the timeline that was outlined in the MOU. But in terms of kind of the work with the county and behavioral health, I'm going to turn it on over to Mario.
Mario, okay. Mayor, can I also request, so Lachelle just shared basically what the role of SHRA is, and Lachelle shared how they're taking the lead on the affordable housing component in the MOU. Want to make sure that that comes back to council, because I think having a briefing to the council and the full public about that would be important.
About the affordable housing piece or the entire partnership agreement, including?
I mean, it could be the entire partnership,
Sure.
including the entire MOU would be great, but I think also having a better understanding of what that plan is for the affordable housing part of the MOU would be really critical as well. And then, Mayor, I know you missed it because you went to the restroom. My second question was also, I know you led the leadership to ensure that we have this MOU in place. And my question to Lachelle and city staff was, I want to have a better understanding of how that MOU is actually operationalized on the ground, in particular thinking about the Meadowview Navigation Shelter. I remember the first time when I visited the site, there was conversation that we didn't have county folks on site to support some of the services. And so given that we've signed this MOU, I just want to have a better understanding if that has come into realization since we signed the MOU. Want to know how many folks are from the counties visiting these shelters, the kind of services and support that's being provided. So that was my second question.
I'm happy to weigh in on that. I know Mario can as well. Why don't we have Mario start, and then I will amplify.
Mayor and Council, Mario Lara, Assistant City Manager, Public Safety. In response to the question, the MOU does bring additional behavioral health services staff into the mix that is at the direction of city staff to where they are engaged throughout the city. I can tell you that although it doesn't call out these two centers specifically, twice a week we have behavioral health specialists from the county at the community centers. I confirm that with staff. And I think we also have them at the EBH Center as well. That's apart from the MOU, but what the MOU does do is bring in additional resources from the county to deploy throughout the city.
I think I'll wait until the end, let my colleagues all speak, because I do want to end by trying to weave a lot of this together, because I won't do it now, but I'll just preview. We're all partners here, right? And SHRA is a lead partner, but we're all partners here, weaving together funding, program approach, and beds, as have been referred to a number of times, as Eric said earlier, the vice mayor, are absolutely crucial if we're going to be able to serve people holistically and humanely. And so these two shelters, or the Tiny Home Project, the TAY Project, and the Metaview Navigation Center, are key pieces, not exclusive pieces, but key pieces of our bed inventory and our opportunity to grow this partnership agreement in a way that we intend. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's
Thanks, Mayor.
little bit of a preview.
For me, I think it's just, given that we've passed this historical MOU, I know really based on your leadership, so thank you for that. I just think it's important to also share the success and what it looks like on the ground right now. And so, thank you, Mario, for sharing that. There are county folks that are visiting these shelters. I think that's really important. The community have asked me, since we signed this MOU, what has been operationalized, and I think that's important to be able to share that with the community. And so that's very encouraging to hear as well. And so thank you so much for that insight. And Lachelle, I'm really looking forward to the plan that you're leading regarding the affordable housing part of the MOU. So thank you so much for your leadership in that. So with that, I'd be happy to move this item to approve the Round 3 HAP funding for the emergency bridge housing at Grove Avenue and the Metaview Navigation Center.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ms. O'Daniel. It's really good to see you in person. I know we've been having Zooms and emails, and I just really want to appreciate not only your presentation, but really helping me as I'm new into this role and learning a lot about SHRA and the various work that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you both. I did have a couple questions regarding some of the information here. So that's 738 total guests from October 2020 to January 2023. And then the 193 number, that's the total number of that 793 that have found some sort of housing, whether that's permanent, temporary, transitional, or something else. And so for the 545 left over, do we keep data on what happens to those folks, whether or not they enter another program, if they end up on the streets, something like that?
Yes, we
Because
do.
I think that's it's around 74%-ish of the total population that's come in. So just interested in that data.
Yes, all the information is entered into the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, so we do keep that data, and a lot of them do go back into homelessness, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know that's and so that leads to my second question, and maybe this is either the operator or you. What are some of the biggest challenges? Because this isn't in my district, but I do have a similar shelter in District 5, and I know we talked about this recently. Some of the challenges that the operator has had in terms of either getting people in or making sure that people have the housing or the programs that they need. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about what the barriers are for the folks that aren't able to get into the housing.
Well, I think a lot of them are not quite ready for housing, and it takes a few times for them to, come back into the shelter and then really engage with services that they really need. And I see that as, one of the main barriers here for this particular shelter. Each shelter is a little bit different. X Street has other challenges. Sure. But I would say for Metaview, this is one of the main challenges, is really engaging with them and providing the services and them accepting the services and being ready for housing.
I know it's very difficult work, so I appreciate your diligence on it, and those are my questions, so thank you.
Councilmember Laloie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. SHRA, thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. The Grove is in my district, and I can tell you that it's been nothing but a plus, positive, and success. I drive by that area almost 4 or 5 times a week, and sometimes I miss it. I just pass right by it because the way they keep it is so organic and natural. You can't even tell you're driving by a shelter. And I've actually gone and knocked on doors with the neighboring houses around it, and they're very pleased. They've had 0 issues. They hadn't made any complaints, so the operation is great. Kind of following up what Mayor Pro Tem Wang indicated too, is that I would love to get the data on how often is the county sending or assisting Grove based on that MOU. That would be a great data to have, and at what capacity they're sending their staff there to help out. And the Grove is exciting because it's for the teens. So the sooner we can get to them and let them know that you know, help them to get on their feet, the better. So that's the only information that I would ask for. But beside that, great job, and keep on doing the great things that you're doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Laloie. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said. So I want to first support the motion because I believe that we need to keep doing what we're doing in providing all the services that we're doing, making the impact to the people who need it the most. And SHRA and its staff and those who are on the street running these programs every single day, they are doing an exceptional job. You are right, Councilmember Laloie. It's almost as if you can walk by it, drive by it, and not even know it's there. And that's a sign of great leadership and great service by those who are doing this work every single day. And so, Sarah, great report, giving us really the details to all of this. I was here when we talked about some of the controversy. Thank you, Councilmember Guerra, for bringing that up, because this was a very, very, very controversial matter. I think it's probably one of the few times that I've been on this council where I had to vote against the council member whose district it was in, because I believe so strongly in the need for the services for the people who are out on the street every single day. And so while I like to support my colleagues, I have to always vote my heart. And I encourage you to do so as well. And in that case, I did. And to see it go from controversy to the kind of success that we're having right now just does my heart good. You know, when we start looking at numbers, I mean, the number of women that are housed, 26%. Number of women that are employed, 13%. Those are women that are not living in their cars, not living on the street, being able to provide for their families, being able to have a roof over their head. It's just incredible what we see, and the best is yet to come. Because we've learned from what we've done, and we're going to build on that, and we're going to make it even more successful as we move forward. So I just, you know, I'm really, really pleased with your leadership and your staff and all those that are on the street. We need to do as much as this as possible. I want the county to be a partner and a teammate with us as we move forward. I know you have made that possible, and we're going to see even greater results as we move forward. So I'm happy to support the motion.
And if I can just, again, emphasize, you know, our thanks to Volunteers of America and to First Step Communities for doing an excellent job. So thank you.
I want to thank SHRA and the community partners you just mentioned for making these projects, ensuring that these projects are a success, because I'm not sure that I'm pleased that Vice Mayor Guerra raised that history. All kidding aside, I'm glad you did. That was a very challenging chapter. I remember being out in the community with Councilmember Carr, who was a great colleague, but was wrong on this. And he was fearful, as many people are, that when you bring quality homeless facility to the neighborhood that is going to downgrade the neighborhood. And the opposite occurred. And he was a great colleague and a great member of the city council. But I think there is a lesson there that we have to say yes, and at the same time, ensure that the project itself respects the community, respects the neighborhood, and we can have both. The era of either or around this issue is long gone. It has to be long gone, because we're otherwise not going to meet the need and the demand. I've always said that there are two tests when it comes to our city's response to homelessness. We spend a lot of time and focus on the second test, which is, does it feel better out there? And are the streets cleaner and safer? And of course, we know we have a long way to go. And I'll come back around to that in a moment. But the first test is, are we actually helping human beings by the hundreds and the thousands get their lives back and get off the streets? And what makes me so proud, even though we have so much work left to do on prong 2, test 2, and also test 1, is that these numbers reveal that because of this work, we together are actually saving lives and bettering lives. And, you know, in this sort of cold, cruel world, sometimes we forget test 1, but we ought to take pride in the fact that the city is stepping into space that it never had stepped into before. I always say, when I started as mayor, we had less than 100 beds a night. We're now up to 1,100 beds a night. The city and county together over these last 5 years, 6 years, according to SAC Steps Forward, I don't make this stuff up, says that we together have gotten 17,000 people off the streets. Well, this is part of it. Because, by the way, I look at the permanent housing numbers and the temporary and the transitional housing numbers, because people are graduating, so to speak, from the two projects we're talking about into something better and more permanent. Finally, this question that was completely appropriate around the county and the partnership agreement and all of it, let me just go into slightly more detail. We are at the beginning. We are at the beginning, and the question, is the county sending their mental health workers to these two projects, is a completely appropriate one. And I think the answer probably is not as much as we need at this point. Okay, we can get mad, which we're not going to do, or we can commit ourselves with the county to implementing this agreement over time in a way that is real and meaningful. What does that mean? That over time, as we build out more beds, as they build out their mental health, the number of mental health clinicians, for example, and the health plans under the partnership agreement provide their resources for outreach workers, that they are in each of our shelters and our tiny home projects. That must be the way that it is. Remember that the agreement, it's my new button, WIT, whatever it takes. That's the legal standard. It is the standard, whatever it takes. The county is required to add as many full-service partnership slots under the Mental Health Services Act and or provide whatever level of care is necessary for people who are not only in the encampments, but are in the various parts of our shelter system. So we don't expect miracles overnight, and there is real workforce challenges and workforce issues that we're building up. But over time, this is exactly what we have the right to expect, so that everybody is cared for. And that's the foundation we have laid together. And finally, more beds are coming. More beds are going to come through the state. More beds are coming because of the partnership agreement and our collaborative approach, including the Housing Authority with projects in South Sacramento, Stockton Boulevard, as we know, and other places. The private sector is now getting interested in potentially providing beds. A lot is happening. And the partnership agreement is the core of it because it defines roles and responsibilities and legal obligations. We need to follow through. This shows, this report and what you have done, that homelessness need not be hopelessness, and that more people can get the help that they need and deserve. Thank you. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. That passes. Okay. That concludes the agenda. We do. Who was I? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Item 3. Go ahead. Emergency rental assistance. I'm sorry, it wasn't on my actual agenda. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mary Liz Paulson, and I'm speaking to you today as the director for the Sacramento Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Today, we will give you an update on this program. A quick history about the SARA program. We all know that COVID hit in mid-March 2020, and immediately we saw school closures, work closures, closures of restaurants, entertainment venues, childcare, and so on. There was talk of a concern about an eviction tsunami, and those families that were most vulnerable were thought to be families of color as well as low-income households. When it became clear that this was not a pandemic that we could recover from quickly, there was interest in doing something before the families lost their housing and became homeless. The SARA program was born in 2020. It was funded at the time with Corona relief funds and community development block grant funds. These were local funds that we used to craft our own program here. We created the SARA program to address potential homelessness, at least the risk of families losing their homes because of a lack of ability to pay rent. We opened the application period October 9th and closed it on October 29th and received almost 13,000 applications. We established the program so that we could provide a maximum amount of assistance of $4,000 per household. In fact, the average amount of assistance that we provided was, as you can see, just over $3,000. Most of the funds were dispersed by the end of 2020. President Trump signed the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 just after Christmas, committing funds to emergency rental assistance. This program was to provide a maximum of 15 months of assistance beginning in April 2020, so it paid for rent going backwards and was expected to be a short-term program. Both the city and the county asked SHRA to continue managing the emergency rental assistance program, and so we continued at that point. Then we were all surprised when President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act in March, adding additional funds and modifying some of the rules of this program. In each of these cases, the funds flowed directly to the jurisdiction, that being the city or the county, from either the U.S. Department of Treasury or from the state. Each funding source required regular reports, those being weekly, monthly, and quarterly. The amount shown on this chart shows the amount of funds that were received as a total from these different laws. The total shows not only the initial awards, but we have been successful in receiving 6 additional reallocations of funds based on the high need of Sacramento City residents. Since the city is the grantee for these funds, SHRA staff works closely with city staff to communicate with the state and the U.S. Department of Treasury. Please note the amount of funds remaining to be dispersed. Most of the funds that we have received have been dispersed to families in need. Almost 6,000 households have received an average of about $10,000 to assist with rent and utility arrears. To date, the city has received about 20,000 applications. About 7,700 of those have been deemed ineligible. Often it's because families don't respond with the required information when we need additional information, and we're also seeing applications from outside the county jurisdiction. We have funded 7,800 applications. Now, on the previous slide, it said that we had assisted about 5,800 households. The difference is because households can submit more than one application. And based on these numbers, you'll see that more than one application was funded per family in some cases. We still have about 4,500 applications pending funding. Because we have more applications by far than we have funds that we have available for disbursement, we stopped receiving applications from city residents as of February 1st. And we have notified all of the pending applicants, the 4,500 that's there, that we do not have funds available for disbursement. So they all have been notified. We will continue to request additional funds as funds are available, but the U.S. Treasury is not expecting that to happen on a continued basis. There's one more possible opportunity, they've said, in June, and then we'll see after that. But they've said that will be all. When the eviction protections lifted at the end of 2021, the SARA program began prioritizing households that were facing eviction, so these families were assisted first. They had to provide documentation from their landlord showing that they were at risk of eviction, and they came to the top of the list. When landlords and tenants completed the forms for eviction court, there's a question on those forms asking if they had applied for emergency rental assistance. If so, the court worked with the SARA program so rental assistance could be issued before the hearing date in order to prevent the eviction and keep the family housed. We believe that we prevented court eviction of more than 1,100 households in the city and the county during this period. The SARA program contracted initially with 14 community-based organizations, which represented more than 30 different languages. The community organizations listed here assisted in getting the word out about the SARA program to their communities and provided assistance to landlords and tenants in submitting applications. Remember, this was COVID, so we didn't offer face-to-face services. Everything was completed online during the pandemic. Additional information about the SARA program can be found on our website, including monthly reports showing the demographics of the households receiving assistance. Here are some of the many comments we received from landlords and tenants who were assisted last month. And I'll draw your attention to, we talk a lot about what this has done to help tenants who are low income and having a hard time paying rent. And really, that's the purpose of the program, to provide stable housing. But there's two quotes here that are from landlords as well. And we heard lots of positive comments from landlords saying thank you. They couldn't pay the mortgage and they couldn't pay to repair their properties without the assistance that was provided through the SARA program. So there's two comments. The top in purple, money was very much helped to caught up on back bills, some needed repairs. Your service center people were patient and helped with my application and questions. Thank you very much. And right under that in red is another landlord. Your program has assisted several of our tenants that fell behind in rent during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, and you can see, again, the purpose of the program was to keep families stably housed so that they didn't become homeless. And many of our comments from tenants are specifically saying, thank you for preventing us from becoming homeless. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for a very important and thorough presentation, really clearly articulated by you, and the report itself is also very clear in terms of how the money all added up together and the number of people we helped, and as important,
Right.
maybe as the number of people who we can't help because we don't have the money. Is there public testimony?
Yes, Mayor, I have one speaker, Lambert Davis.
Yes, this is Lambert, and I wanted to say that the SARA program, which I had never heard of, obviously, because it was formed during the pandemic. That's a wonderful program. It helped a lot of people who were really just needed some help. They were employed. They just couldn't go to work. And so therefore, the SARA program, I think that program, it should be some kind of way the mayor, who is incredible on raising funds, to find a way to keep that program going, because it's going to put a lot of people into homelessness if it can't get some sort of support.
Yes.
But that is a wonderful program, Sarah. It is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Let's go to the City Council. Councilmember Valenzuela.
Yeah, thank you. I want to separate my kudos for a program well done from the general level of anxiety that I feel in my stomach right now. So do you have any estimate on how many people are covered by that 4,500, those 4,500 applications?
I don't know. I don't have a total. We know that those are 4,500 households.
Okay. I did some quick math. The average household size in Sacramento County is 2.76. So by that math, that's 12,555 people. 12,000 people. Sorry, God, this makes me emotional. This will double our numbers of people on the street. And I know everybody up here feels that. Like, we get the calls as well from people who were waiting and are kind of like, now what? And so this isn't anything on SHRA, because you're obviously doing everything you can to shake the trees everywhere you find them. And I really want to give you a lot of applause for that. But oh my God. So, God, I really am hoping that we can have like a dialogue up here. And I'm really turning to you, Lachelle, and the mayor for like, what can we do? That I hadn't done the math until today, and I'm sorry to be emotional about it. Some of it's time zone difference from traveling to DC last week, but we've got to be able to figure this out. I think all of the work we're doing about getting people off the street, which obviously I support, and I want our shelters to stay open, and I want us to do everything we can possibly do, but this is staggering. And so I don't feel good ending the item today without some sort of feeling that we're going to try to figure something out. And I don't know what that is.
That's what I mean. It's a good program, and I said they need to get more money.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So I guess I thumbs up. Is that
the youth
program.
council member?
It's the new council member. I guess I just want to turn that to my colleagues. I feel like we're on the precipice of this emergency just getting beyond the epic levels that we're already seeing on our streets, and it's going to get to the point where it's just, double. Just imagine that, like double the number of people on the streets today. I can't fathom that, and that could happen this year. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I know Lachelle and her team and I have talked about this several times. I guess I really am turning to you all as my colleagues to say there's got to be something, and I don't know what that is. But I've just put that out there. 12,555 people, potentially. Thank you for expressing your passion and emotion, because you're darn right. You're darn right. This is the essence of it. And your challenge is absolutely the right one. Let's talk about it. Okay? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, let me thank SHRA and the staff. I'm very proud to have requested and advocated for this when the coronavirus funding first came out through the CARES Act. And there was a lot of controversy about whether we should do this or not, but I feel very good about the city going on and taking this on its own. And then, following that, the county joined in, and then we joined the program. But clearly we've seen the benefits of keeping people who were working, these are working families in our city who had lost their employment during the coronavirus. There are folks who, the economy had been disrupted. And so we saw how giving them a little bit of stability helped them get back on their feet. So I also want to thank, the support of then Councilmember Carr and Councilmember, Hanson for sitting down and at that point and saying we need to advocate this. And thank you to the mayor for including this as a part of the overall package when we finally approved our first round of funding. The point here, though, I want to make is without the state and the federal government, the size of this program, the cost of this program is difficult for us to even take on. And I think that for us, it was prudent that we used that amount of federal money that we had to do this. So one, I don't know if it is already in our policy platform for our federal lobbyists and for our state lobbyists. I know we have a component both on the city side, but if on housing, but I don't know if this particular aspect of rental assistance is on there. But if it's not, I think it's important that that be added specifically to our federal advocacy for the continuation of rental assistance programs. The other piece here is, it was the disruption in the economy that put a lot of folks in this difficult situation. Yes, housing costs were an issue and whatnot, but even more so, I think it's working with our new executive director of the Sacramento Employment Training Agency, Jennifer Hernandez, to make sure that we are getting ahead early on and helping folks not only on the find stable employment, but strengthening that, and then getting in the career pathways. And I know SHRE does part of that and is in partnership, but that is the other key aspect of it, is making sure that we're addressing both aspects of it. Because if we just think we're going to, ask the federal government to come in and not do our part on the workforce training side and create some stability and strengthen that opportunity, then I don't think we're ever going to hit that mark. But I do want to make sure that those two requests are put in. Again, thank you to the staff for executing a program. I know there were challenges. I heard of the challenges, both on the administrative side, but this was something new. And when you take on something new, it's better to have issues and I would say small failures, but great successes in trying. And so thank you again for all those that helped this ARRA program move forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Obviously, again, thank you to SHRA. You've done this well. You've helped thousands of people. Thank you. But I'm glad, again, that Councilmember Valenzuela raised it the way that she did. And so let's break this down a little bit, all right? We currently do not have more money, right? And yet, we have a great public team on the housing side, and we also have some great organizers on this city council and in our community. So if we were to, I'm just looking at 4,599 anonymous to us currently households who have applied, who are waiting for assistance and are not getting it. Can we know more about them? For example, how close are they to the risk of eviction? What is the relationship individually with the property owner and or their landlord? Can we intervene by galvanizing our human resources here to try to work out payment plans or something like that for the back rent for as many of these people and households as possible? In other words, we don't need to just have these people who undoubtedly have tremendous anxiety themselves about their life situations sitting fallow on a list. Even if we can't provide direct money, we could convene our friends at the apartment association, the realtors, and really break this down and see if we might come to a protocol, an agreement by which we can save as many of these households as possible from eviction. Why can't we do that? Why can't we? What would it take to do that? I could break down the number 4,599, divide it by X, and work throughout our districts and throughout the city to get our arms around these people and these families And maybe there are alternatives that we haven't thought about. In other words, I want to call for some direct case management here of as many of these households as possible so that we can help them. What would it take? I'm not putting it all on SHRA here, but this is a team effort. That's why I mentioned my colleagues. I mean, I think about what you did individually and collectively around vaccination, and the way that you intervene directly with people and families on site. Is there help me. Let's help these people. Huh? What do you say?
So, if I could, just to
Yeah, please.
I know that.
I'm sorry, Sean. Sean's next. Go.
Yeah. I just wanted to kind of identify some of the trends that we're seeing from when we started the program to kind of where we are now. So when we started the program was directly related to COVID-19 response. In other words, I lost my job or I can't go to work or something related to the COVID crisis. And so we did see a lot of individuals who just were out of work. And so this was perfect timing, and it really helped a lot of individuals. Then as time went on, and the rules also allowed us to assist anyone who just was in dire need, then we did see people who were just struggling to pay rent because rent is so expensive. So, we kind of went from a COVID-19 response to really trying to address really the problem that a lot of people have out there, who's probably even beyond just the people on this list, who are really just struggling to pay rent, and it becoming a subsidy program to assist them while they try to still figure it out, or to try and transition into something more affordable to the extent that they could. So that's the kind of the difference that we saw as this program went on. And that's why we also saw people who came back, because I think the question I know that the mayor had was, why does it say 7,700 and we only had help over 5,000? It's because people actually were assisted, got caught up, but then still fell back into that same kind of, unfortunate situation where they couldn't pay rent. And so then we could come back and help them up to the 15 months. But then we still had people past the 15 months who still needed help. So I think it is a symptom of a bigger problem and issue that we have in terms of having enough subsidy to help people who are just struggling right now.
Can we get, I'll turn it over to you guys in a second, but can we get, for example, I know there are privacy issues, et cetera, but can we somehow get the list of this 4,599 people and or households and begin identifying who the property owner is and begin breaking this down so that some connection can be made? And again, maybe the idea are individualized payment plans so that the property owner is respected. Some of them are small property owners and depend upon this rent for their own livelihoods. I respect that. But there have to be workouts here to avoid disruption. And maybe there's something non-financial that the public sector can add to make everybody's life easier here as well. But this merits a big lift and a big effort here, because Councilmember Valenzuela is right. I mean, how do you explain to the public that we've gotten 17,000 people off the streets since 2017 and the problem is significantly worse? This is the conundrum of our time, and this report, this small report, is really centers the great challenge we face and so many of our constituents face. So can we get the list of people who are on the waiting?
Yes.
list?
So what we can do without divulging the privacy is that we can put together a survey and then query all of the people on the list and ask for specific questions like you've outlined here.
Quickly?
Well, to the extent that people will respond, but usually people are pretty responsive because they're trying to get assistance. So we can do that so that we can break down the actual group of folks.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Laloy?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Obviously, this is a very, very important topic. And I think if we don't get ahead of this right now, we'll continue being behind the 8 ball as we are right now. So we have to have some kind of a strategy to get ahead of this. And by just throwing money at it, I think it's a Band-Aid. And I'm very appreciative of what took place during COVID-19. But my question is, out of this, let's say 5,000 households, what percentage of them are senior citizens? Because I think they need to be at the very top, okay? And I don't know if that's a confidential information that could be divulged or not. What percentage are, between 18, let's say, or they're not senior citizens, they're actually, they can work, they're not handicapped or what have you, and then how fast can we connect them to a job, whether it's through SETA and what have you, so they can start working and start making money so they can get back on their feet. So I think it's a lot more complicated than, hey, we just need money to fix this. I agree, but putting money in it, it's a great fix, but it's also a Band-Aid where we're going to be here in 6 months again and talking about the same topics. So the senior citizens, to me, are our number one priority because there's nothing that they can do. So whatever we got to do, we got to take care of them. But then you have that age group that has the capability of working and creating an income so they can pay their rent. And again, some of the individuals I know, for example, in my district, they want to go to work, but they don't have a car, or they don't have a ride to the job. I just got done talking to the operator of Arden Mall, who's in my district. Almost every store in Arden Mall is hiring right now. And one of their question is, how can we intrigue individuals come and apply for jobs? So those are some of the questions that I have, and as the mayor indicated, I think this is an emergency and a priority, and this is not something that we can come back to like 6 months from now because we're going to have even more issues. So I think if we can kind of get that age category, and then some of the individuals that can work, I think we need to offer them possibilities of jobs that are there. And then at that point, I do agree with the mayor. Can we have this conversation with some of these landlords saying, hey, Sean just started working in 3 months, if you can kind of back off for 3 months, and then he'll start making his payment plus an additional 10% or 5% of what he owes you until he can catch up. And I think those conversations coming from the city to some of those landlords will play a very, very important role and will hold a lot more water than just the tenant talking to him. So, I mean, that's, again, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know. I'm just looking at it to have a strategy that, yes, we need money, but money is not going to solve this issue. It's just throwing a Band-Aid on it, and then we're going to be back to square one. So that's something that I wanted to bring up. But the senior citizens are my major concern right now, because with the inflation that we have, which for some reason I still read it being in single digits, but when I look at our gas prices being up 50% and a dozen of eggs being $8, I think it's more than single digits, and I'm very concerned about that group. So thank you.
I can reiterate some of what Lachelle said also. Our experience was in the beginning when the SARA funds were targeted families who were impacted by COVID. We saw mostly working folks, and seniors did not reflect the majority of the folks that we're seeing. Now that the law has changed and we can help folks who are impacted during the COVID pandemic, we are seeing more of really a lot of folks who are just needing assistance. The rents are increasing, they're working, but their working wages are not covering the amount of rent. And so those are some of the issues that we saw pre-pandemic as well, that are really just those folks who are living right on the edge. So I'm not undermining anything you said. Absolutely, all of that is true. And we do ask applicants for the head of household what their birth date is, so we could go and see how that reflects the demographics.
That would be good, because also what the wages are today versus what they were
Right.
before pandemic, those have also increased exponentially, right? I mean, In-N-Out is hiring at $20 an hour, whereas before pandemic, they were $16.
Right.
So I just want to know if there's that connection, because I also know some of these individuals simply, they don't have a way of getting to work. So that's also a big obstacle in front of them. So if we can get some of that information, I think at that time, we can probably have a better strategy on how to attack this for long-term, right?
More information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Valenzuela.
Yes, I definitely support getting more information, but I do want to speak a little bit to the nature of the situation that Lachelle just mentioned, Director Dozier just mentioned. You know, the average median income here in the central city is just around $32,000 a year, right? That's the average median income, and people raise eyebrows at that, but that's what the data tells us. And we are seeing 500 square foot studio apartments approaching $2,000 a month. There is simply a mismatch in the housing that's available and the income that people who work in this area make. It's just. And so I do agree, like, obviously, if we can get people into apprenticeship programs, if we can pair them up with better opportunity, let's do it. But I also think that part of this number, this tension of, yes, we've housed 17,000 people, but our numbers are still going up, and now we have 10,000 people on the street, is due in some part to the fact that people are losing their housing. Not entirely, but in some significant part. And those numbers that are growing of seniors, of people with disabilities, of people on fixed income, they have income. Who's going to find an apartment in this region that you can afford $900 a month? It's not possible. So yes, I think another important point and I appreciate your point, Mayor, about negotiation, because I think what often gets missed in this case is that these property owners, they're not getting this money. You know, if they evict this tenant, they're not getting this money. All they're doing now is ending up with somebody potentially camping on the street near their building who now can't find a place, because finding a place gets infinitely harder when you have an eviction on your resume. So I think there is a lot of mutual problem solving here. There's a lot of stewardship conversations to be had here. Some of the same people who are yelling at us about fixing this crisis are also the people who would oppose the suggestion you just made about negotiating to try to keep people housed. But this is part of the tension point that we need to live with and confront as a community. If we are going to make a choice to let these folks lose their housing, whatever percentage of those 12,000 folks that is a choice that we are making. And when I talk to the business community about these numbers, they freak out because they're like, oh my gosh, we have to stop these folks from getting onto the street. And I said, I agree. So what are you going to do to help us do that? But I also want to say that this to me is very related to the conversation about homelessness, because we understand what our market is doing and we understand what's going to happen to some of these folks if we can't help them. So I know this might not be a popular, and I know this is outside of our technical MOU, but I want to ask the county for help as well. I don't want to take that off the table. Their budget is significantly larger than ours. They were able to take care of a lot more of their SARA people because they had more money. We had a separate allocation because that's the way the numbers worked. But this is an all hands on deck type situation, because if these folks end up in our service pipeline for homeless services, then we're going to end up managing that together in the end anyways. And so I do want to put that suggestion on the table as well, that we consider approaching the county for assistance with some of this backlog. And maybe it's not 100%, right? Maybe there's some situations where we're helping with relocation assistance, like you said, to move into a smaller or different apartment. But I think this is the time that we're problem solving in that sense of urgency. If we double the number of people in the system, then a couple hundred beds in the next couple of years isn't gonna make much of a difference to what we're experiencing. But I also wanted to one-up, Mary, your suggestion around negotiation, because I hope that the property owners in question here, as much as I want to really understand the fact that they've lost that income, that they need that money, have lost that income and are not going to get that money unless we can solve this problem, and they may be further impacted by the increase in homelessness around their properties. So.
Well, I will convene with everybody's assistance here this round table, so to speak, not just to talk about it, but to actually begin getting our arms around how we can avoid 4,599 city households from being at even greater risk of homelessness. And I get the politics, the business community. It's everybody's worst nightmare, including the business community, to have thousands of additional people end up, as you say, in our system and or on our streets. So there's a lot of mutuality here, and we will convene. Yes, go, please. I'm not on the list. Okay, go ahead. We'll get on the list. We'll get to you, okay? Vice Mayor Guerra, Councilmember Talamantes, and Mayor Pro Tem Vang.
Yeah, if I could suggest maybe working with also the cities, and I don't know if this occurs already, but in the city of Sacramento's tenant protection program, we included a mediation component too. And we have active engagement of that. So I don't want to replicate.
No, we don't want to replicate.
And so I don't know if SHRA's staff is communicating with the city's mediation program, but there may be relationships already there, and so there may be an avenue there where the staff can engage with that. And I know it's on a contract basis, and we use a mediator for that. I think it's Northern Legal Services in Northern California. So, I just want to put that as a suggestion versus reinventing the wheel or expanding on our current mediation program.
You put it out there, right. Let's use our existing process where possible. What we need to do if we're going to facilitate negotiation or workouts is figure out the most effective and efficient way to get these human beings, 4,599, or many of them as want to participate with the property owner, with the right kind of facilitation, so that we can help work out as many situations as possible.
All I'm saying is make sure that they're also connected with the TPP, because if the landlord isn't participating with us, the tenant also has an affirmative defense as part of our city ordinance.
Some units.
For some units, yes.
Not for all units,
No,
right?
But at least it gets us moving, and maybe it helps us expand or look at how better utilize our current program. So.
No, good suggestion. Councilmember Talamantes.
So I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Valenzuela, on asking the county to see if they can help us out with the SARA program. I love their budget and I love their support in this. So seeing if we can work together on this, I think would be great. And then I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Laloli, on protecting our senior residents on fixed income. They're most at risk of becoming homeless, and we got to do everything in our power to make sure that we help our seniors. I know you put the link up there to see if we can look at the data, but I was just wondering, does that link show what areas of the city of Sacramento people were able to take advantage of the program?
Yes.
It does? Okay. I can look at it on my own time. I was just wondering. And then does it separate it by like household or by like apartment area? Like, does it have a separation if it's an ADU, like type of housing?
So, no, but on our list of reports, if you scroll to the bottom of the site, I was going to see if the link worked and it doesn't. But there's several things that I think answer your question. There's one graph that shows the household size of the households that we're assisting, and I think that's relevant to the discussion. It shows the zip codes where people live, where we're providing assistance. We haven't asked, and we don't have the data to show if they're apartments versus necessarily single-family homes, for example. We just don't have that data. There's information also about the demographics, both race and ethnicity, that we're serving also, and I'm trying to think of what else is there that's responsive to some of the questions you're asking.
Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, I just want to remind my colleagues that the unemployment rate is at a 4.2%, so people are working. It's just one job is not enough, and sometimes the wages, the rents are really high. And so Director Dozier, thank you for acknowledging that it's just hard for people to keep up. And this is acting as a supplement to people's rent right now just because they can't make ends meet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vang, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a comment, but I took it off because Councilmember Talamantes asked my questions, so we're good.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Lowy, one more?
Yes, and also from this 5,000 household, can you let us know by district, how many households per district have fallen into this group? That would be great.
Okay. Last thing, just information-wise, my staff reminds me that Sacramento Steps Forward also has some resources, not enough to address the magnitude of what we discussed here today, but people can call 211
Right.
and access steps forward and seek to access those additional resources that they have. So, every household helped is worthy, obviously. So just wanted to put that out there for people as well.
And then I just wanted to add that we will reach out and talk to the county. While we don't have money in the city, we do have money in the county. So if you are a resident and you live in the county, you can still receive assistance from those applications that we've already received. And that's purely because the county got 3 times the amount of money that the city did.
Council,
Excuse me? Because-
no, they were separate allocations to the county outside the city and the city. And so that's how it was divided. Councilmember Jennings, last comment?
Oh, I just appreciate Councilwoman Valenzuela for her passion and bringing this to a discussion where we can have this kind of discussion and really problem solve it, try to figure out some ways to problem solve it. And the final point I'll make is all the strategies that we have in place, I think there is an opportunity without maybe having the funding to really negotiate with the landlords to be able to get their rents at an affordable rate that allows them to be able to get money, because right now they're not getting anything. So 100% of nothing is nothing. But if, in fact, you can really talk about negotiating a contract that allows the rent to come to a more affordable rate with them, it allows the tenant to be able to stay in the place and be able to work. So while we're working the strategy of working with the county to find out if they have resources and all the other strategies, I don't want to take off the table talking to the landlords to be able to negotiate.
We have to convene that, and we're going to do it, okay? And figure out, I need help. I don't know. Again, what is the way that the individual property owner interacts with one of the individuals or households on the waiting list, and how do we then help them work out a solution to minimize evictions? That's what we're talking about. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thought you were going to make a short presentation and, that was going to be it. No. This is a passionate group of elected officials. So thank you.
That really is the last item.
That is, now that is the last item. If there's nothing else to come before, what do we have? Oh, public comments on matters not on the agenda for the Housing Authority.
I have one hand raised.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis?
Mr. Davis, we're going to be back at 5.
I thought this was public comments not on the agenda.
Oh, it is.
It is.
I'm just,
Yeah.
Please proceed, Mr.
Okay.
Davis.
Yeah, I wanted to first of all say to Mayor Steinberg and also Pro Tem Mai Vang, last Saturday at the Meadowview Town Hall meeting, I wasn't there, but a lot of my friends that live in Meadowview were there, and they gave tremendous kudos to both of you, because not only was it a thorough town hall meeting, but they said you went 2 hours, and so that got out all over the city. And then it got to me, and I said, well, the only one left now is D2, and they are tremendous. I'll say Grant High School. I don't know about District 2, but Grant High School is huge supporters of the mayor because of what he did in many instances that I've attended, different ribbon cuttings and different things like that. And they're looking forward to that because they gave him the state football title trophy when they took the picture in the chambers, and that's a tremendous honor to be given the trophy. Anybody could have held the trophy in the photo, but the young people gave it to you. So they're looking forward to that, and I would think that you and City Councilman Laloli could make that happen because people out there are really looking forward to that. So thank you, Mayor.
please give this gentleman more than 2 minutes. Just kidding. Thank you, Lambert, very, very much. No, we are, as I go about these town hall meetings, which have really been terrific in collaboration with my council colleagues, some of them for the so-called deferred areas. we will definitely go to District 2 and District 1 and District 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of them, and make sure that we get everywhere in the city. So thank you. That's it. We are adjourned until the council meeting at 5 o'clock. Thank you for a great meeting, great discussion. We're adjourned.